Well, good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you in other time zones, good morning and good evening. I'm Brian Trombley, National Sales Director at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I'm pleased to welcome you to another presentation in DCL's Learning Series. Today's presentation is Intelligent Content for Life Sciences and Healthcare. Joining us today is Ann Rockley of the Rockley Group. And I'll just take a few minutes to introduce those of you who aren't familiar with DCL as to exactly what we do, and then I'll introduce Ann so we can get started. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of Ann's presentation, but first I want to take a quick poll to see what areas of life sciences and healthcare our audience comes from. Jen, could you put up the poll? Give you all a minute or two to make your selection. We have the poll done, Jen, or is it still going on?
We still have a couple votes coming in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to give 5 more seconds for the poll. And I'll close it in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. And I'll share the poll now. So can you see the results there, Brian?
I don't see anything.
Okay.
I do.
I heard an I do there. And you see the results?
I am seeing the results.
Okay, I'll just read them off in case anyone can't view them on the call. For pharmaceutical, we have 19%. The poll question was, what segment of life sciences and healthcare are you in? The results are pharmaceutical at 19%. Medical devices seems to be the highest percentage of our audience with 43%. Biotech got 5%. Medical insurance got 5%. And health and wellness information comes in at 27%. Okay, I'm going to close out the poll.
Excellent. Jen, I think you made me the presenter, but I don't see the slide deck.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay. Do you see it now?
Just a second.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay, give me one moment. Sorry about that.
Do you need me to give control back to you?
I'm bringing control back to me, and we'll go from there.
There we go. Now I can see everything. Excellent.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So Jen took us through the poll results, and overwhelmingly medical device manufacturers are the largest group here, but still good representation from health and wellness information and pharmaceutical and biotech. And I think we'll have a lot of insightful information for everybody in this group. Let's move on. Let's just spend a quick minute or two on DCL. Jen, the presentation, I just see the poll results. Can we see the slide deck again?
Do you see that now?
Nope.
Okay, it's clicked through.
No, I just see the poll results.
Okay, let me hide the results. There we go.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's all right. Okay.
Don't see the slide deck.
Okay, the poll is closed. You don't see the deck?
Nope. Well, I have a copy in front of me, so we can just go from that. Can everybody else see the deck? Ann, can you see the deck?
No, I cannot. I am just seeing the opening standard screen.
Okay, I see the deck. So
Share your screen.
okay, 1 second. Yep, I'm showing my screen.
I'm
No.
not seeing it.
Let's see.
Oh,
There we
there
go.
it is.
Okay.
Hey, bravo. Bravo.
Thank you.
Okay.
For some reason,
back up
sharing a
couple
clean
of
screen
slides.
worked. Go ahead.
Can you back up one slide, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
There we go.
So just quickly in getting back on track here, and we didn't lose too much time, Data Conversion Laboratory, a little bit about who we are and what we do. We've been in business for 32 years now, doing content conversions, leveraging cutting-edge technology and infrastructure to make the process easy and efficient. We're a U.S.-based organization. We have a team of analysts and project managers and developers and editorial staff here in the U.S., and we leverage a number of offshore partners as part of the process for some of our projects. We're global ready and scalable. We're specialists in complex projects, and sometimes complex doesn't mean big. There's small projects that are complex as well as very large ones. So projects range from all sizes. It could be one manual that needs conversion from one format to another to automating processing of form data and extracting and turning that into XML and doing it for hundreds of thousands of pages a week on an ongoing basis. We really focus on automating as much of the process as possible. Through automation, you get consistency and your conversions are going to be more accurate. And we guarantee our results. Jen, next slide, please. So in addition to the core data conversion, we also provide services around audio and video transcription, page composition for journals and magazines. Back up one, please. Thank you. Back. 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 Right there. Great. No, forward. Okay. We also offer consulting in various areas of content and content management. We have a solution called Harmonizer, which is a content reuse analysis tool that allows us to identify opportunity for reuse in large sets of data. We also do a lot of work in digital publishing and ebook production. We can do project setup and management of your projects if you want to take on a conversion project in-house but need somebody with experience and knowledge to have some oversight over that. We can do that. We can also QA your projects, making sure that your conversion staff are doing the best job possible and help them with continuous improvement. We have translation services available through us, and we also perform workflow analysis. Next slide, please. Just quickly, you can see a wide range of different industries that we serve, and that's a very small set. But generally, our focus is in publishing, and that could be educational, reference, legal, periodicals, a lot of scientific, technical, and medical publishing. We do a lot of work in government, both in civilian agencies and military and defense. Life sciences, the reason we're here today is to talk about life sciences and intelligent content. We work with many pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers, and as I mentioned before, a lot of scientific, technical, and medical publishing. Aerospace, technology, aviation, and institutions like libraries and universities are part of our customer base. So let me just take a minute to introduce Ann. We're very fortunate to have Ann Rockley with us today. Ann is the CEO of the Rockley Group. She has an international reputation for developing multi-channel content strategies and digital publishing solutions. Ann has been instrumental in establishing the field in content strategy, content reuse, intelligent content strategies for multi-channel delivery, and content management best practices. Known as the mother of content strategy, she introduced the concept of content strategy with her best-selling book, Managing Enterprise Content, the Unified Content Strategy, now in its second edition. Ann is ranked among the top 5 most influential content strategists in 2010. Ann has a Master of Information Science from University of Toronto and is a Fellow of the Society for Technical Communication. Ann, welcome, and maybe you could start by giving us an understanding of your work in the area of life sciences and healthcare.
Certainly. I've been working in life sciences and healthcare for almost 15 years now. And the types of areas that we work with is, say, on the life sciences side, a lot of work in the labeling and submissions information area, and on the other side, working with the with healthcare and working with a lot of customers whose content really and truly is their product, and it's all health and wellness oriented. So you can just see from the slide, this is just a selection of some of the kinds of companies that we've worked with.
Great. Next slide, Jen. Just quickly, if any of you are tweeting, a couple of hashtags at DC Laboratory and at A Rockley. So, Jen, how's your mouse working? There we go. Great. So, Ann, let me ask you this. Every industry vertical has its challenges as they relate to content. What do you see as the major content challenges that life sciences and healthcare industries face today?
Well, there are common challenges across the areas, and then there are very distinct ones. So if we take a look first at something like life sciences, one of the big areas of pain that we're seeing is the issue of managing the volume of change and controlling through version control all that information. So there's a lot of change that happens. There is change that happens as a result of the review cycle, regulatory or legal. The regulatory agencies introduce change. They want to have content communicated in a particular way. There are changes happening right up until the end. And a lot of time what is happening is that companies are managing this all manually. So they might be managing it in, say, Microsoft Word, with change tracking and sharing files through email, or they may be, as I've seen in many organizations, where they get the content into InDesign and then the changes are sort of redlined on the InDesign files. And there's real problems with this because people don't know what the latest, greatest, accurate, signed off piece of information is, particularly if it gets stuck in their email. Even if it's in a server situation where they've got it on a shared server, they can't always tell which one they should be working from. And you can make mistakes by pulling up the last one. And it's a ton of rework to try and manage all those changes by tweaking the content when it's actually in the InDesign. And another area in life sciences that we're seeing is becoming more important is the area of tracking claims. Every single piece of information that a life sciences company states has to be backed up by clinical research and a variety of other types of research that says that, what you're actually saying here is accurate. And it's not that you necessarily present that information to your customers and patients, but you need to be able to track that with every single piece of information and be able to produce that during an audit situation. So again, when you've got so many different versions and so many different iterations of that content, the mapping of the information associated with claims is getting lost. So those two are quite big in the life sciences area. When we look at healthcare, they're seeing something very similar in terms of change, managing change and version control. They're working typically with a lot of specialists, experts in medical sciences who are communicating information. And as that content is getting created and reviewed and changed, it's going through many of the same issues of tracking and finding that current information. And one thing that's really putting pressure on the healthcare industry is the whole area of burgeoning devices. Everybody is looking at content on different devices now. It used to be, say, in a healthcare situation, you might hand out a pamphlet, might hand out a booklet. Somebody, would come and ask for particular information. But now people are more and more, they're getting that information off the web, they're getting it off their smartphones, they're getting it off their tablets. They're communicating with you as an organization electronically. And it's very difficult to manage all of the different ways in which the content needs to be delivered. And so that's a big one. And then between both life sciences and healthcare, there's the issue of marketing. And marketing any kind of content, there's the same challenges they face in every industry. But you add to this industry the whole issue of security and the issues of not sharing information in a particular way, making sure that any information that is shared is accurate, making sure that you can control it. There's a lot of different issues in that area. So that's sort of at a top level, some of the big ones that we're seeing.
Yep. Anything you can dig down in a little bit deeper on in any of these areas? Or
Well, I think with the first few that I went through, probably okay, but there are other areas like localization, which is also an issue, because especially with life sciences content going out into so many different languages. Right. And you've got huge issues there of making sure that those changes right up till the end are getting into the languages. There's also issues of making sure that the translations are technically or medically accurate. And there's so many nuances in that that is an issue. So both areas in terms of localization, yep. It's a huge issue.
Yeah. Great. Well, Anne, you coined the phrase intelligent content a few years back. And what exactly do you mean by intelligent content?
Well, what we're talking about in terms of intelligent content is content that is manageable in a way almost like you would manage data, in the sense that with that information, you can access it in different ways. So I've got a definition you're probably seeing up on the screen right now. Yes. So I'll start off with that, and then I can give you a bit more information. But intelligent content is structurally rich and semantically categorized, and it's therefore automatically discoverable, reusable, reconfigurable, and adaptable.
Great. So what does that really mean?
What that means is when we think about our content, and I was saying just a few minutes ago that a lot of people keep their content in something like Microsoft Word. a great, word processing tool, but you can't really identify the content that you have in there. It's kind of a black box, and you're using a variety of different tags like normal for paragraphs, and you're probably using normal for content which might be in a table, and it's normal content that is in a bulleted list, but you've applied the bulleted list to it,
Right.
which you got this big black box of normal, and that isn't very useful if we want to do something with that content. So say we wanted to pull out the information that's just about intended use. I can't do that in either a Word file or in an InDesign file, but I can if we structure it. And when we structure our content and we give it a semantic structure meaning, then I can say that piece of content is intended use. That piece of content is a contraindication. That piece of content is a recommended process that somebody should be following. So that's structure, and it's so much more powerful when we can take those black boxes and make them structured.
Right. Great. Great. So, we've got this concept of intelligent content, but, we look at drug companies, and they're different from device manufacturers, and device manufacturers are different from medical publishers, and they in turn are different from many clinical settings. And while they all have the same end goal, which usually is improved patient outcomes, could you break this down a little bit more, especially as it relates to specific areas in life science and healthcare?
Okay, so taking intelligent content I'll start with one and then sort of move to the other. There is the bridge across, of course. But in life sciences, when you've got intelligent content, instead of, as I said, creating content and managing it in the Word or in the InDesign, if you create the structured information, then your instruction for use has a structure associated with it, the intended use, the precautions and warnings, the contraindications, the actual directions for use. All of those different pieces are accessible, and we can do things with them. And if you think about a package label or a box label, a lot of the same information is there between the two. So things like product names and logos and the quantity and the measurement of things like that. If you can identify it, you can automatically publish to multiple outputs. I can publish to my IFU, I can publish to a manual, I can publish to a label. And I don't have to recreate each of these. I don't have to go in and manually update them. So if there's a change, say there's a change, the FDA has asked for a wording change on a contraindication. So then if I make a change and that contraindication is used in 2 places, 3 places, so that's the concept of reuse, not copy-paste, reuse, where you're pointing to the content, then it updates it everywhere. And so it's so much better for quality, so much better for tracking. So you've got productivity increases, a variety of different things like that. When we look at it from the healthcare perspective, reuse plays a big role. So you would have content, maybe say something like diabetes. You're communicating information about diabetes, and you want to communicate, the definition of it, or you want to communicate something about diet, those sorts of things. Well, you might communicate it to a healthcare provider. You might communicate it to a physician. You might communicate it to a patient, and it could be a parent of a child who has diabetes. So you've got this content everywhere. And with intelligent content, we can track all that, and we can make those changes so that as soon as medical science makes a decision, such as yesterday there was quite a big press release that diabetes has now been classified as a disease. That's going to change things in your information. Change it once, change it everywhere. You can pull content out of your system because you tag it in a way that you know exactly what that content is. And you can pull it together and deliver it in a variety of different ways, in a video, with underlying text, all sorts of different things. So if we make our content intelligent, really the sky's the limit in what we can do with that information, because it's completely adaptable and discoverable.
So we can not only share pieces of content across different related documents, but we can also easily push that information, publish that information out in multiple formats. And we can target that information and how that information is communicated. You use the example of a physician receiving some information on diabetes and a parent receiving some information, and then the patient might be an 8-year-old girl. Well, they all need to know some of the same information, but it needs to be presented differently. And so I guess what you're saying is you can tailor what's delivered as far as information to the audience, to the segment of the audience that you're trying to address.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Great, great. Well, Jen, next slide. What's the most important thing in your mind that companies can do, especially in this space, to start down the path of intelligent content?
I think the most important thing that they can do is to start looking at their content not as documents, so not as a very specific deliverable, be it a web page or a booklet or whatever it happens to be, but looking at it as modular content and looking at it and saying, well, what is the structure of my information? What kinds of content do we always want to have in this deliverable? What kind of content do we always want to have in that deliverable? So even if you don't decide at this point, and if you go forward with intelligent content, you're probably going to need new tools and technology. But if you're just getting started, if you start to look at your information that way, start to think about, well, where is your reuse? Maybe segment off that reusable content into a different area of your server so that you know that when you say something, you can always go to that spot and get the latest and greatest way that you as a company has decided it needs to be communicated. And that way you're not going to have so much information that is duplicated, reduplicated, inconsistent, all over the place. You're starting the thinking in taking it towards intelligent content.
So really taking the time to analyze your content structurally, not from a presentation perspective, but from a pure information perspective, and seeing how it's used and how it's used in multiple places, I guess is what you're saying is that first step.
Yes, so you're analyzing it. We typically call this process content modeling. It may not be quite so formal for your organization in the beginning, but you're looking at the content and the meaning of the content, and you're thinking about it separate from the way in which you will deliver it, so the visual aspect. Because if you've got the structure correct, it's very easy to apply a different look and feel. And so getting very analytical about that, even at minimum, you're going to start seeing ways in which you can save time and improve the quality of your content.
So sort of a mind shift in the way people work now, where we're working in documents or we're thinking about web pages. Now we need to really just think about the content and trust that the magic will happen to make the outputs what we expect them to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a trusting person. I can rest it.
Well,
Okay.
if you've done the analysis correctly and design in the sense of structural design, and someone else has done the visual design, it will happen.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, that's just like the starting point. And I know I want to talk in a bit about some of the successes, but you know, beyond just the starting point, what can organizations expect to happen in terms of, you know, a path to you know, the end game, which is really leveraging that concept of intelligent content. So you've done some analysis now. We sort of understand our content from a structural point of view, you know, and we sort of have an idea of how we can chunk it down into smaller, you know, objects that we can reuse. But, you know, once they have that, what else needs to happen?
Well, if they start to really go down the path of intelligent content, then as they start to modularize their content and structure their content, they're going to want to adopt maybe some new authoring tools to make it easier to actually create that structured content. And then it can be simple as a form. It can be a web form. It can be even, you know, something like Microsoft Word, which with plugins can support the structured content. So you've got that structured content and you've got it really modular. You need to think about how are you going to store it. So that's the semantic tagging. Is like, what are we going to call these pieces of information? And how do we know what information is valid in what situation? So going back to our previous example of the diabetes, I might have a piece of information, say the definition of what is diabetes, that would be the same for everybody. But then I might have an illustration that would be relevant to one of my audiences. And so I want to add a tag to that illustration. You know, this is for healthcare providers or caregivers. This piece of textual information is for more appropriate to a child. This piece of information is appropriate in an instruction for use, whereas this piece of information is appropriate in the label. I have to be able to tag that content, and that adds intelligence to it as well, so that the system that I'm using can retrieve that content and can push it out in the way that you need to. So there's the content structure or modeling. There is the metadata, that's your tagging. We also do a lot of work to automate the workflow associated with content. And that means that we can automatically send it to people for review. We can automatically send it out for translation. A lot of times sending content out for translation is a fairly arduous task, determining what has changed. Sending that out, then the translation vendor, you know, checks it carefully, runs it through their system, checks what has changed. If I've got modular information, maybe I've got 5 pieces of content that make up the total, and only 2 of them have changed, then I can just send out those 2 changed pieces, and I don't have to manually figure it out. It will tell me that it's been changed. The system will tell me that, and then I can send that out to the translation vendor for translation. So that's saving time, that's saving money, because you're not having to check the content all the time. There's so many areas of the process that can be automated when you're working with intelligent content, it makes it so much easier for a company to control their content.
Right, right. So big savings in a lot of areas, efficiencies and lower translation costs and lower production costs for your outputs, probably mostly, when you're dealing with printed output, especially if an organization's using InDesign or Quark now, and there's constant recomposition and relayout of translated or changed information. I mean, that all just goes away.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yes, it's a huge cost for organizations relaying out content,
Yep.
and that all goes away.
Awesome. So it does sound like there's an opportunity for a lot of success in many organizations, and maybe we can talk a little bit about those successes. What have you seen around intelligent content in this space, and how companies have improved because of it? And I just want to mention one other thing too. We talked a minute ago about the cost savings, but I think there's another aspect that comes through here, and that is that the user experience through consistency in the content. If you're not cutting and pasting and changing things and forgetting to change in another place, if your content is always correct and it's being pushed out in multiple directions, the level of consistency goes up and the user experience increases.
Exactly. That's extremely important. It is so important with the content that these companies produce, that it be as readable, understandable, consistent, accurate as possible. And so a focus on the user experience and making sure that it is consistent and accurate. And things, whether it be on a mobile device, I see this all the time where I look at content that's in print, I look at content that's on the web, and I look at content that's showing up on the mobile device, and they're often all different. And it's because 3 different areas in the company have copied, pasted, and produced the content. And
Right.
the differences can be subtle, and the differences can be dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about success now. And what have you seen, specifically in life sciences and healthcare, as some of the organizations you've worked with have moved down the path to intelligent content?
Well, just a few examples from some of our clients, without naming names. We had one client a few years ago who wanted to create and manage their content in this way, and they built a business case around the area of risk. And we all know that one of the key strategies is to reduce risk, is to reduce inaccurate information. And so that was their business case. And they moved forward. They got all their content working. And about 6 months into their full rollout, they were able to prevent a situation which might have caused risk. So there was some content that had been written and approved and by a number of different regulatory agencies, and they wanted to make sure that that content stayed the same so that it wouldn't cause a problem later on. And someone did try to change it, and it triggered a notification that this content was being changed. So they were able to prevent that change happening. And they'd had an issue in the past where somebody had accidentally, not really realizing how important keeping it the same was, and also all the different places that it impacted, and they made a change, and it cost them a lot in fines and litigation. So that's one example. That's like in your absolute control. Another example we had was with a company that was, like many, are translating their content, and they were translating their content into 9 languages before they started the whole process. And they went through and again they created intelligent content, started publishing it, pushed it out into translation. And in the first year after this occurred, they were showing a 40% reduction in the cost of their translation and a 25% increase in the sense, or maybe decrease if you want to think of that way, increase in productivity, decrease in the time it took to get content out the door and signed off and everything like that. And with the dollars that they saved in translation, they decided to expand the number of languages because they were getting a lot of pressure from local economies to provide translated content. So they expanded from 9 to 25 languages with the savings that they had. And so they were really quite pleased with that. So there was, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So that particular organization, I mean, you know, when we talk about intelligent content and reuse, you know, one of the obvious paybacks is reduced cost of localization, and I think many companies today can take advantage of that because, you know, most of our you know, efforts are really global these days. But so for organizations really that don't have a lot of localization, the other areas that benefit them are the efficiency, which means you can do more with less, but you're not necessarily going to do with less because, you know, organizations always need to do more and more and more. So I guess you look at the ability to take on more work within the technical publications department and get more done with the same headcount as opposed to having to hire, you know, 4 more writers because we're adding 6 more products.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I always say do more with the same.
Yep.
So in essence, you're freeing up people, whether they be, you know, in the labeling group or tech docs or marketing communications or medical writing or wherever it happens to be, that because they're not redoing things all the time, they've got this time freed up and they can take on that added work. I have yet to find an organization that, you know, doesn't have a sort of a backlist of all the things that they want to be doing and should be doing in order to grow their company and improve the quality of what they're delivering.
Right. Right. So
don't have headcount.
Yeah. So, but that, you know, so give me a second to get my thought clearly together before I say it. So you know, today we're talking in the context of regulated industries, highly regulated industries, yeah. And you know, mitigating risk and you know, needing sign off and approval ultimately from the FDA. There must be a huge amount of review and approval of the content, you know, through regulatory, through legal, through marketing, through R&D, through the labeling group, through the tech writers. That process can be somewhat daunting, and by going to intelligent content and thinking about content in smaller, more granular pieces, I would imagine there's some benefit in terms of the review and approval cycle.
Absolutely. You see real productivity increases in that area as well. So if content has been written and reviewed and signed off, maybe in a previous version of the product, or you've got a standard kind of statement that's used in multiple places, legal and regulatory and QA and everybody else does not have to read that content again. And again, in healthcare with your physicians, they don't have to review it again. You don't have to get all your very busy, often very stretched resources to review that content over and over because it's already been done. Now, we do find that even though they've seen it and they know it hasn't been touched, certainly reviewers like to see that content in context.
Right.
So don't like to see just a little piece of content coming their way. They want to see it in the whole. But you can still do things where you can, say, gray out the content that hasn't changed, and they can actually see it there, and they can compare it if they want to,
right,
to an older version, and they can satisfy the requirements to ensure that it is still the same, hasn't changed, still accurate, but all they have to focus their time and energy on is that that subset of information. And one of the things that we didn't talk about sort of earlier is a lot of people who review content, it's not their review is a part of their job. It isn't all of their job. And so when we are able to reduce the amount of information that they have to review, they can often be involved more in what they, and I'm using air quotes here, the real job, the one they were hired to do, which can bring in new benefits to the organization. Take an engineer. I mean, they can be developing new product. Take
right,
a physician who can be, doing something else at that time.
Yeah. So all this efficiency, I think, can also point to another factor here, and especially in this area, life sciences, medical devices, pharmaceutical. The sooner you can bring a product to market, the more money you're going to make, or the more competitive advantage you have. And these products, whether it's a drug or a device, can't go out the door until all the documentation, all the labeling is done. And so if we drive efficiency into those processes, then products can get out to market faster, and companies get competitive advantage and additional top-line revenue. So
that is absolutely true. One of the pieces of key information that we often use when we calculate a return on investment is the opportunity cost. So what does it cost you for every day in which you're delayed? And those numbers are well known. Yeah. And so if they can do it faster, even if it's 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or 10 days, the savings can be incredible.
That definitely has an impact. Great. And we're running up on almost 50 minutes here, and I know we want to get to some questions. A couple more slides here. I know you have some resource information you want to share, and we can talk a minute about some upcoming webinars, and then I think open it up to question and answer.
Yes, so please, everyone, give us your questions. Happy to answer them. The slide here for more resources. On the left-hand side, you'll see the book that we have written, Managing Enterprise Content, a Unified Content Strategy. This is available from bricks and mortar stores and, of course, online purchase. You can also get it in an ebook version. But that really goes through the whole process that's associated with intelligent content. I'm really excited to announce, and this is the first time I am announcing it, we've been running an intelligent content conference for 5 years. We're going into our 6th next year. But we found that there was so much interest in this area of life sciences and healthcare that we're going to actually have a 2nd intelligent content conference happening in May of next year. So it'll be strictly focused in this area and the unique requirements that this industry faces. So that'll be in San Francisco in May 2014. Also wrote an article for the June issue of the DCL News, and you can see the link there that is talking about the aspects of what I covered today.
Great, and I think we have a couple of upcoming webinars, I think extending and building upon this one.
Yes, when we were talking about this, it was like, okay, how can we talk about all this? And it's really hard to cover all aspects in a 45 or 50-minute session. So we've broken it out, and in the second webinar, which will be in about a month's time, and we'll send you some dates for that, is I'm going to really talk about how do you do this? What are the steps? What do you need to know in order to create intelligent content? And then in the third one, we're going to talk about the return on investment. So where are the potential savings? Obviously, anytime you change your processes or choose to buy new technology, things like that, you need to show where the money is and where your savings are going to be. So that session will be specifically on how you calculate that.
Great. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left, and let's open it up to questions. So please feel free to submit your questions through the panel that's probably on the right side of your screen. And Jennifer, what do we have at this point for questions?
Okay, we have one question from Dan. If you have structured content that's adapted for different target audiences and a change is required, don't you still have to make that change in multiple places, even if it's a centralized CMS that refreshes the content wherever it appears?
When you're looking at the content for different audiences, there may be unique content for each of the audience, but there may also be common content across all of the audiences. And we see this a lot, and the common content can vary. So there's two things. If it's common content, change it once, it changes wherever it appears. Obviously unique, you do need to make those changes. But when your content is intelligent, you often have what is called like a relationship between the content. So any change to the original or the source content in which that content is derived from, it triggers a notification of where that change is. And we've actually found that even though we're talking to different audiences, that there's more in common than there is different. We may have different stories, different examples, different images, those sorts of things, but all of the what is this, why do I care, what do I need to know, those sorts of things are often the same, and you'll find that when you do your analysis.
Great. We have another question. This is a nice one, Anne. Someone wanted to know a little bit more about the paper that you just published, and also to get that link again.
Okay, so maybe if you go back.
Yeah, I can do that.
The link is right on the
Whoops.
right? Whoops.
Not what I meant to do. Here we go. And also not what I meant to do. Hold on. There we go. Going forward.
Yeah, so it is on the slide, so of course.
There we go.
And what I've done is I have articulated what I see as the challenges and the pain points in this area and how intelligent content can help to address these challenges. And so that's what that article is about. And I will be doing a second and a third article that will augment those, again, on how to do intelligent content and how to calculate the ROI, so that at the end you'll have a very in-depth article, series of articles to refer to.
And the last question I have right now, and if you have any more questions, please feel free to type them into the questions box. Luckily, I already put the slide up. It was asking for the slide again also. And the asker was curious to find out a little bit more about the Intelligent Content Conference.
Certainly. Well, the Intelligent Content Conference is a conference that we launched, well, we're going into our 6th year now. And I started talking about the concepts of intelligent content, and I was seeing so many opportunities for where companies can be improving their processes associated with their content. So that's the bigger one. And then in this year, in the first one, what we'll be doing, and we're just about to launch the website. So if you're interested in learning more, by all means, email me and we'll get you on the list. But we're going to be inviting a number of speakers in this area, as well as opening it up for call. And I'm hoping to see presenters who will present from, you know, all the different areas that you have all spoken about. So, and you've indicated you're from. So, certainly from pharma, from medical devices, from health and wellness. Excuse me. Health and wellness information. We're looking at it from behind the scenes, as I tend to talk about. So how are you preparing that content in the background? What about marketing? What about content strategy to mobile devices? What about sharing medical information, not personal, obviously, not personal medical information, but information about different areas of medicine and health and wellness. So really focusing on these things such that we can start sharing as a community how we can be doing this all better. And even though I ignited the spark, it's been so exciting to see all the very, very interesting things that people are doing. For example, we've had a presentation in past years where the American Breast Cancer Association put together an app, a mobile app for people unfortunately suffering from breast cancer and helping them to find the correct information. We've had the National Institute for Cancer, all sorts of different fantastic speakers, and I know we will have them in 2014 as well. And if you want to share, we will be putting the call out shortly as soon as we get the new information on the site.
Okay, we have time for, I think, 2 more questions, and I just want to go back to our contact slide since somebody did ask for Anne's email address, and it is there on that contact slide. That's Rockley@rockley.com. Our next question is, what organization or organizations do you suggest writers join for more information on intelligent content, especially for life sciences and healthcare?
Well, there's a number of different organizations. There's the American Medical Writers Association. That is certainly one. And I'll actually be speaking there in November. There is the Society for Technical Communication. There has, we had a meetup at the last SDC Summit in May of this year, and there certainly are some interesting threads going on there. There is also the Drug Information Association, which has a medical writing special interest group. Now, just one word of note, a lot of these groups are focusing on the specific writing of the content and the regulatory sort of information about the content, and maybe not quite so much about the intelligent aspects of it. And so I'm really hoping to start a community, maybe LinkedIn, something like that. Free community. I'm not looking to start another organization, but one in which we can share and talk to each other and share stories and things like that.
Okay, we have 1 more minute to go. If you think you can answer one last one real quick, it's can you recommend any solutions or tools that help organizations develop intelligent content?
That's a big question. I could talk about tools for a week. There's 2 sides of the development side. There's very, very much the design, the content strategy associated with this, which is what I'll talk more about in the next webinar. And that doesn't really need tools. But once you actually start to create the content, what you're going to want is a structured authoring tool. And most often, but not always, these structured authoring tools are XML based. Some have been around for over a decade, and others are fairly new. So we can even do this in Microsoft Word, say for example, with a plugin. And then you create the content. So how are you going to manage it? Well, you really need what I call a component content management system. So this is not a document management system. It is not typically a web content management system, which are solely focused on pushing the content out and managing the website. All important in these organizations, but you need something that's going to manage the chunks. And then if you're going to publish out to the web, that's pretty easy. Easy, I'm using air quotes here. In the sense you can push it out to your existing web tools or whatever you're using for mobile devices. Now, if you're doing print, not so much. Print is somewhat of a headache, so that will require an additional tool. It may be a plug-in to your content management system that allows you to take your very well-structured content and transform it into something like InDesign, Quark, whatever you're trying to publish out, because page layout is not aware of structure in the sense that we need it to be. So this transforms it for you.
Well, great. Is that it, Jen? Is that the end of the questions?
Yep, that's it for questions. Right on time.
Excellent, excellent. And thank you so much for joining us today. I know we're looking forward to the next two in this series. And with that, I guess we're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.